Frog of newt and eye of tongue. Watch out, here comes some witchcraft fun. I found a book of spells. We're gonna read them out loud. You're like, Jason, aren't you pretty sure there's a djinn in your house right now? Is that the smartest thing to do? And then we take a look at a bizarre conspiracy involving the YouTubers known as Red Letter Media. Is it possible that these beloved film critics met the Illuminati and were given an offer they couldn't refuse? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet. Give it up for one of our legacy Patreon supporters, Dave H. Woohoo, yeah, wee! Haha, yeah, he's all walking on in, tipping his hat. Woohoo, yeah, he's walking on in, he's dressed up as a witch. Look at him. He's like, I don't want any part of this nonsense. He's wearing a witch costume. All right, Halloween came early. For us at Dead Rabbit Radio Command, Dave H. has been a longtime supporter of the Patreon. That is why he is going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the merch store or the Patreon, I totally understand. I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, remember, this Friday night, September 12th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, is Dead Rabbit Radio Movie Night. We're going to be watching a bunch of short horror films, and we always have a good time. We've been doing this off and on for a couple years now, and it's always enjoyable. The way that you can be a part of it is to join the Patreon, either the paid membership or the free membership. Even if you are a free member, you can still have access to the movie night. It's going to be a blast. We're going to do that this Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope to see you guys there as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the episode. Dave H., I hope you brought your broom. Actually, no, we should have our own. Bibbidi bobbidi boo! Bing! Now we have the bunny broom. It's just regular old broom. It's also, you're like, I can totally see a price tag on it. You got it at Walmart. Yeah, but it's because you gotta believe in the magic, bro. Like, so we hop on the bunny broom. You're like, no, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I'm just gonna walk. The broom's moving so slowly. You're just walking underneath it. Get on, Dave H. Dave H. Fire this bunny broom up as we witch our way out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command, all the way out to a cauldron in the middle of the woods. What does a witch's broom sound like? Oh, no, obvious one. You always thought that was the witch laughing. No, that's the noise of the broom's powerful magic engine. We head all the way out to this spooky forest. There's a clearing. Crows overhead. They're up late this night because they know magic's afoot. They know spells are about to be cast. We're now walking around this spooky cauldron in the middle of the woods. It's all bubbling green liquid. Bloop, 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 bloop. And I've brought you here to this witch's haven to read you some spells. Now here's the thing. I have often made fun of witches on this podcast. And to be fair, I've made fun of witches in real life as well. People who know me, even before the podcast, knew my disdain towards witchcraft. Not magic. I believe in magic. And I believe that some witches can use magic, but not this. Not what we're going to be looking at. This is absolutely ridiculous stuff. And so I pull out the witch's book that I got when I was down in Sacramento. And it's not this old leathery tome of weathered pages. No, it's called The Complete Book of Moon Spells. And it was published by a publisher. It's not bound in human skin. It's bound in some sort of paper. The pages are also not human skin. It appears to be some sort of paper. It's just a book. It's a book that, listen, there's no magic in this book. The magic of the written word, sure. But the complete book of moon spells, first off, it's only, 200 some odd pages. So if this is all the moon spells, I'd be a little concerned. I don't think it's complete. Like, Jason, are you just going to be nitpicking? You're like, oh, the publishing date, what? This is so dated. Retro. It's actually quite new. Maybe if it was published in like 1383, I'd give it a little more credence. But anyways, the complete book of moon spells. I bought this down in Sacramento because here's the reason why. A lot of times on this show, I make fun of witches. And I always go, their stuff's ridiculous, da-da-da-da-da. And usually what I will do to prove the point that it's ridiculous is I will make up a spell on the spot. I often use bury a potato in the backyard, and then all of a sudden all the warts on your body disappear. I mean, first off, you got the warts by sleeping in a bed full of baked potatoes all night. I don't know why you were doing that in the first place, you crazy witch. But it's easy to disparage something if you make up what you're saying that they like. You can do that for anything, right? So anyways, I decided, let's take a look at a spell. And this spell is a spell to influence the decision of another person. That's super powerful. Think about that. You go, oh, I thought it was going to be like spells on how to have like unblemished skin. Oh no, they're in here. There's dumb spells like that. There's spells on hurry up spell for impatience. Like, can you imagine being late? Like, you're married to this lady, and you're just sitting there on the couch, and she's like, have you put on your shoes yet? Have you put on your tie yet? Have you put on your pants yet? You're totally naked. You're like, I gotta watch the rest of Squid Game before I get ready, honey. You're on the first episode of season 1. Yeah, I've heard it's really good. They're gonna talk about it at the party tonight. Get dressed, Harold. So, this is a hurry up spell. And actually, it's not even for that. Now that I'm looking at it, it's not even for that. It's for if you've cast a spell and it's not working. If you cast one of the made-up spells in this book and it's not working, you can cast a second made-up spell to get it to work quicker. Which, I mean, this is made up. Now, I believe in magic. I believe in ritual magic for sure, and I believe in law of attraction, which is a form of magic. You're using your will to reshape reality. And high magic, ritualized magic, I totally understand. And I actually even have more respect for herbalists and shaman, and that is considered like low magic, but it's very ritualized. You're making these herbal remedies. That's actually chemistry at that point. That's just chemistry and knowing plants and things like that. But there is almost a magical element in, it seems magical because they're getting the ingredients right and it works wonders. But this is fake. This isn't even like shaman magic. This isn't even like herbal magic. Which, I keep saying, those aren't lower magics than, say, ritual magic. It's all just kind of apples and oranges at that point. But this is phony. None of this is real. So you have a spell on how to hurry up and get a faster result of your first fake spell. And it's nonsense. This isn't the one I wanted to cover, but listen, man, when you're trying to reshape the universe and one of the ingredients you need is cinnamon, like, I don't think that's how it works, man. But see, here's the thing. You could go, well, Jason, if you believe in the law of attraction, couldn't you focus your law of attraction through cinnamon? Yeah. I mean, I guess. To me, it feels like a lot of busy work. It feels like a lot of busy work to sit around a cauldron, which it does require for this hurry up spell. So I hope what you're trying to hurry up isn't an Amazon package of your new cauldron. But you do all this nonsense, and then you say, by the power of, you're like, Jason, you really shouldn't be reading spells no matter how phony you think they are. I don't believe in this. Quote, by the powers of air and fire, I ask the moon to speed my desire. All of a sudden, a bunch of women kick in my door. I accidentally cast the love spell on the entire city of Hood River. By the power of air and fire, I ask the moon to speed my desire, and then you burn some paper, and then may my spell soar through the breeze and come to me faster, please. Because they always got to rhyme. Here's the thing. If the spell rhymes, it's pleasing to the ear, but I don't think it means that magic is near. I don't think you need to rhyme. It's so ridiculous, because then the question goes, if this was published in Spanish, the spell wouldn't rhyme at all. It wouldn't, because it's in a different language. But so you would have to change the words. So what's more important? The precise words, which is the way it is in ritual magic. If you practice Kabbalah magic, you better learn some Hebrew. For it to be super effective, or really effective at all, there are parts of it that have to be spoken in Hebrew. So, do you change the language? Do you say it in Spanish and then it won't rhyme? Or does a Spanish version of this book make it rhyme? So then the question goes, is it the words or the rhyme that add the power? I think the power would come from someone simply putting their will out. At the very base level, just law of attraction can get 90% of this stuff done. And there's no rhyme, there's no cauldron, there's no cinnamon, which I'm sure people love. I'm not a big cinnamon guy. But also there's not the advantage of telling people you're a witch. I think a lot of people just like calling themselves witches, and they do stuff like this every once in a while. They get a kick out of being a witch. But anyways, let's look on to the spell that I did want to talk about. The spell to influence the decision of another. And I mean, again, that's like powerful stuff. Borderline mind control. At the very least, if it's not mind control, you are putting yourself in their brain. You're putting thoughts of you in their head. If you walked up to someone on the street and you said, hey dude, I'm currently stalking someone from within their eyeballs. I mean, first off, hope you know this person really well. Otherwise, they're going to call the police. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? And you're like, I'm... There's no way to rationalize that. That's a bad example. But what I'm saying is that, imagine if you were reading a book, and in the book, the protagonist of the book casts a spell or invents some sort of technology or has some sort of psychic ability to put visions of themselves into other people's head so they will think about them. You would be like, that's gross. That's not something a protagonist does. And if they do it, it would backfire, or they would learn the error of their ways in some fashion. It's not something you should do. Now, I'm not complaining about it, right? Magic users, there's white magic and black magic and gray magic and all that stuff. I'm not being a moral guardian of what you can and can't do with magic. I just think it's ridiculous that it's in a book of moon spells. Like, you're floating through it and it's like, here's a spell for self-love. Like, that's fair. I did notice there was a spell for, like, having, like, a good body positivity, how to love your body more. And I was like, could there also be, like, a spell on how to lose weight? I'm not saying that to be insulting, but I thought that was weird. I go, why isn't there a weight loss spell in here? Like, I get it, love your body. I'm totally fine with that. But also, someone could be thumbing through it and go, can I love my body if I'm 50 pounds lighter? I don't know. Jason, first you're complaining that the spells are too powerful. And then you're hoping that the spells are the new Ozempic. That's one of the ingredients. It's all build your cauldron and then call up Eli Lilly and get an order of Zepbound. Sit around the cauldron, put cinnamon in, don't eat any of it. You're going to be very tempted to eat the cinnamon. Don't do it. You're going to take that vial and put the needle inside of it while chanting Zepbound, Zepbound to take my weight. With this one shot, I'll disintegrate. And then you go, my fat, I mean, not all of me. And then you inject it. Do this spell once a week. And magically, you will lose weight. You will no longer want to eat anything. Anyways, the spell to influence the decision of another. These are the ingredients. And I'm not going to read this note by note. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. I could. I'm obviously having enough fun with this. But take notes. Gingerbread man cookie cutter. Like, come on. Like, what type of spell requires that? What type of spell? This spell's a new spell, is what I'm saying. Or a lazy spell. We'll get to that in a second. But if you have a spell that requires, like, a tablet or an Ethernet port, I don't think it's going to work. I think they just needed to fill in some pages. And the guy was looking around, and he's like, oh, I'll just make up a spell right now. I mean, they're all made up, but this one will require an Ethernet cable. If it was an old spell and it required Eye of Newt and, like, Skin of a Virgin, I'd give it a little more respect. I don't think they would put it in the complete book of moon spells that you can buy at Barnes & Noble. Gingerbread man cookie cutter, white fabric scissors, 3 sewing needles, some thread, a photo of the individual you want to think about, or you want them to think about. Cinnamon? This guy who wrote this book has stock in a cinnamon company. Black pepper, stuffing, 4 blue candles, 4 quartz crystals, honey, and a photo of you. So anyways, you have all these ingredients, and what you do is basically, the gingerbread man cookie cutter is simply the outline for a voodoo doll. You're making a voodoo doll. Like I said, this is dangerous stuff. Making a voodoo doll. They don't ever use the term voodoo doll, but it's very clear when you sew together with all this fabric and this cookie cutter, you sew together a little tiny person, and then you take the photo of the person that you want to think about, or the person that wants to think about you. Wait, what? Yeah. You take the photo. Could you imagine me being a warlock of like a witch's coven? I was like, okay, so, wait, no, don't do that. They're already putting live frogs in the cauldron. I'm like, oh no, someone's going to have egg on their face. When the portal to hell opens up, all the witches are getting sucked into oblivion. You have someone, so I go, what example am I going to use? Because I got to read this spell out loud. What example am I going to use? I got to pick somebody. But I picked Heather Graham, bombshell actress, award-winning actress. The award is hottest woman, and I'm the guy who gave it to her. I don't know if she's ever won an Academy Award, but Heather Graham's top notch. And I was talking about her one day, and I do talk about Heather Graham probably more than most people, probably more than her parents, really. But I mentioned her, and someone goes, "Yeah, she's really hot in Boogie Nights," and I go, "Yo, she's way hotter now." Like, distractingly hot. I can't watch movies. I do watch movies with her in it, but I'm always like, wow, it's too much information, Jason. I watched a movie a long time ago about her as a cannibal, and, like, I don't think I've ever seen a hotter woman in my life. The way she looked in that movie, they're like, Jason, listen, bro, you constantly deny you have a thing about cannibalism. You constantly deny it, but you talk about it all the time on your show. And now you can't even watch a movie. Now you lose your mind with a cannibal, dude. Go get some help. Go see a therapist. I don't have a cannibal thing. But if I did, then that would have been the best movie. It's the best movie. But here's the thing. So I remember going, oh my God, who is that? That girl is so hot. She's gorgeous. Look at her eating that human. Oh, my heart's all aflutter. I was like, Heather Graham? What? But anyways, so that's who we're going to cast the spell on. You're like, I don't know. I'm going to join the Heather Graham fan club just to warn her. Anyways, because I got to pick somebody, right? I got to pick somebody. I was thinking a couple different names, and people would be like, what? They're like, Jason, I would have rather you picked Donald Trump or Sydney Sweeney than your cannibal love interest. Listen, I'm not a cannibal. Not a cannibal. Heather Graham. But anyways, you make a little voodoo person, and you stick the photo of Heather Graham, you crumple it up, and you put it inside the doll, and then you sew it shut. You put the doll in the middle of a circle of 4 candles and quartz pieces, alternating them. You light them and visualize the person represented by the doll. So I'd be sitting in front of a bunch of candles, imagining Heather Graham. She's the hottest she's ever been. Right now. I'm looking in through her bedroom window. There's all these candles. I'm all knocking them over in her garden. I'm like, oh, Heather, you're so delicious. I mean, beautiful. I would never eat Heather Graham, just so we're clear. I would never eat anybody. You're like, I'm glad you added that second part. You just wouldn't eat Heather Graham. You're like, I'm not a cannibal. I wouldn't eat Heather Graham. People are like, well, what about us? And I was like, oh, we'll see. I guess we'll find out when the dinner bell rings. No, I think cannibalism is just so creepy to me. I think it's one of the creepiest things that can happen to you. I think that's why I have a fascination with it. It's not a fetish. It's not a sexual thing. I just find it terrifying. I think especially if you're still alive while they're eating you. That's particularly scary. But anyways, let's go from that terrifying thought back to this terrifying thought. I'm in the bushes outside Heather Graham's house. I have these candles set up in these quartz crystals, and I'm imagining Heather Graham. You need 3 sewing needles. So anyways, you have the little doll, and you're picturing whoever you want to have think about you. You dip the needles in honey, and then push them into the doll, which I imagine is super slippery. Or would it be super sticky? That's like the worst thing to coat in honey and then to put somewhere else, honestly. It's almost like he's trolling these ladies. He's like, hey, you know, it'd be really funny to watch a bunch of women try to put honey-dipped needles in a cookie cutter man. You take the needles, you push them in one by one into the head of the doll. I mean, that's gruesome. I mean, voodoo magic. She's all, my head. 3 intense migraines, one after another. But then you gotta say this spell. Like the sweetness of honey, I will be on, and then it says full name of person. I don't know her middle name, but I think it'll work. Like the sweetness of honey, I will be on Heather Graham's mind. By 1, this spell is begun. You're like, wait a second, am I supposed to put the needles in already? I don't know, bro. There's all these needles dripped in honey. You're like, oh wait, I gotta pull them back out. I'm supposed to put them in as I'm reading the spell. He doesn't say that. That's kind of what it sounds like, right? Like you would say by 1 and you'd stick the 1 needle in, and then by 2. Pull those needles back out, boys. Then push them one by one into the head of the doll, saying, like the sweetness of honey, I will be on Heather Graham's mind. By 1, this spell is begun. By 2, this doll is you. Bit of a threat. By 3, the decision will best affect me. So again, it's a stupid rhyming thing. Like, there's a way easier way to do that. I mean, the easiest way is maybe just introduce yourself to the person and be like, hey, I'm Jason. Want to join me for a meal? But by 1, this spell is begun. I doesn't say this in the book, but I bet if you say it in a spooky voice, it works better. By 1, this spell is begun. By 2, this doll is you. What if someone said that to you? Like, you're just walking down the street and there's a guy sitting there with a bunch of candles on the ground. There's a little doll. He's looking right at you and he goes, by 2, this doll is you. And he stuck a needle in its head. I mean, again, it's super terrifying. You're all, You're holding your head. You have a serious craving for cinnamon all of a sudden. Anyways, you read that spell and then you have a photo of yourself, a little cutout photo of yourself. And it has to balance on the sewing needles that are stuck in its head. You have to have a little photo of yourself cut out and you stick it on. You're like, what's the cinnamon for? Oh, that's just for you to eat. That's just for if you have low blood sugar during the spell. No, you're supposed to put all those ingredients in. It's the worst spell reading ever. You're like, you had all the cinnamon and black pepper and you're like, oh, surely this will come into play. You've already sewn up the voodoo doll. You're like, sewing nice and tight. Nothing will ever open this up. Anyways, so, sorry, you missed out. I put the cinnamon and black pepper in, but you didn't. So, you place the cutout photo of yourself on the needles, which will act as legs, like holding up the photo, and that's when you say, while I'm on your mind, Heather Graham, the decision of, and then it says, quote, what you are after. What's the decision? Like, I didn't read this all the way through. So at the very beginning of the spell, I do this with rules, too. When I get a board game, I don't read the rules. I figure it out as I go along. Let's go back to the beginning. Every now and then, you will find yourself at the mercy of another person's decision. The following spell helps set a fire under the individual you need an answer from. This is even more useless than I thought. I thought it was just like a spell for stalkers. I thought it was a spell for bad guys. Now it's like you're at work and the guy in the other cubicle hasn't finished the Johnson report. And you're like, damn it, I need the Johnson report so I can finalize my numbers. So, hey, Barry, you got the Johnson report? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll get around it. And so you're like, Luckily, you haven't had lunch yet, and you have all your cinnamon and black powder still, and you pull out your little cookie cutter, and you start making a voodoo doll of Barry down the hall. And then you would do the spell and say, I need the Johnson report, and then it would help get the Johnson report. This is even dumber than I thought. I thought it was just that I could get Heather Graham to show up. I thought she'd be sitting at home, and she'd start having visions of this man wearing nothing but boxer shorts, sitting in front of a microphone. And it's just like this vision that pops in her head every once in a while. She's like, who was that? Who was that hunk? That hunk of meat, that delicious man. Oh, I'm so hungry. She might really be a cannibal. And then eventually, that would just drive you insane. Imagine if you had that visual. Every so often, you would just get this flash in your mind of this man in boxer shorts sitting with a fan blowing directly on him so he doesn't overheat in front of a microphone with no context. What was that? Sometimes when you walk in a dark room, you see a silhouette shaped like him, and you turn the light on, it's gone. You'd go insane. You'd have no context. But I figure eventually she'd be like, oh, Dead Rabbit Radio, huh? Maybe I should check that out. That's it, right? She listens to the podcast, she goes, this sucks. This podcast sucks. I'd rather be haunted by the vision of a shirtless man for the rest of my life than listen to another episode of this. But no, I have to, like, okay, what do I want? It's like a decision she's already in the middle of. This is just stupid. They already have to have, like, a goal in mind. Well, okay, so let's say, yeah, she's going to start listening to Dead Rabbit Radio. She's going to start listening to Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm going to say that she likes it. She may find it super irritating. She's like, wow, Kermit the Frog got a podcast? Fantastic. While I'm on your mind, Heather Graham, the decision of whether or not you should listen to Dead Rabbit Radio is what you'll see. For the good of all, but most for me, it is with my will that a favorable verdict will be. That's it. You just rhyme a couple times, and the spell's over. But, like most spells, there's always a contingency, I guess I should say. Right now. Before this episode's even aired, right when I recorded, Heather Graham wakes up in the middle of the night. She goes, I saw him! I saw the pale man in the chair. He's just sitting there, in boxer shorts, in front of a mic. What does it mean? Here's the thing with a lot of these spells, right? It's not like you cast it and then all of a sudden lightning bolts. And then whatever you wanted. Barry shows up. He's sitting there in the middle of the woods holding the Johnson report. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? I was just kissing my wife. Why am I here? No, you take the doll that you made and you put it on your altar. So you gotta have one of those too. You're like, damn it, Jason, I put it in a box already. Oh no, the spell's broken. You're supposed to have an altar. It doesn't say that here on the list of ingredients, so I blame them. I guess they just assume you'll have the altar. Also, probably if you didn't skip to page 92, like I did, it might have explained, oh yeah, you need an altar for most of these. You leave the doll on your altar, and then each week, you have to repeat steps 5 and 6, using fresh honey. And you do that until they make a decision. After a decision has been made, you bury the doll. So it's not even necessarily a decision in your favor. It's just they finally come to a decision. Remember, you're trying to get them to make a decision, but it says in here, the one that'll benefit me the most. But at the end of the day, Barry goes, you know what? I don't want to do the Johnson report. In fact, I'm going to tear up all the documents and all the work everyone else did. Rips it up. That is the decision I've made. And he walks away and you go, well, mote it be. I guess, that is what happened. So then you bury the doll. But it has one of those things that I see in a lot of these spells. Just keep doing it until it works. You keep coming back with fresh honey. Eventually your altar's overrun by ants and bees. You're, why did I put my altar in my bedroom? It's like, fresh honey is like the best fuel source for every insect on the world. But, yeah, you just keep doing it until it works. Now, again, what's funny is I think that this actually will work. Not this spell, but if you took the core elements out of it, see, you can't sell a book like this saying how to get someone to think about you. And it would be one page, it would probably be one paragraph. Every single day, meditate on them making the decision that best suits you. You have to believe with complete assurance they've already made that decision and that you're already living the life after they've made that decision. You believe that, and it will be done. And if you find it not being done, you can repeat it daily or weekly. And there you go. This entire book could be summed up in sentences, but then you don't get to call yourself a witch, and you don't get to sell books about witchcraft, and you don't get to have a book publisher that specializes in books of magic. This is nonsense peddled to people who either don't know better, or are curious, which there's nothing wrong with being curious and reading this stuff, or they just want to call themselves witches, and they want to go around. I've met a lot of people like that. They just like to call themselves witches. And they'll go, I'll cast a spell for you, honey. And then you find out they're doing this nonsense. And you're like, well, maybe you could have just thought about it. Maybe you could have just used law of attraction or used a magic system that actually worked. But anyways. So if you guys enjoyed that sound, you're all being possessed by bees or drowning in honey. You're like, Jason, don't read books of spells after you think a djinn's invaded your house. I think I think I'm fine. I hope you guys are fine. Hope you're not drowning in honey. If you guys like this segment, I'll do more. I mean, I'm not going to force it, right? I'm not going to... Wow, wait, what? I'm just flipping through it and I found a spell called Slaying the Psychic Vampire. Wait, what? This is dumb. I don't know why I expected it to be cool. I was like, whoa! This spell will clearly be awesome. No, you brush sage on you, and then you just say, I cleanse and clear myself from the vampires who steal my energy. Dumb. Stupid. That's not slaying anybody. It's all ingredients needed. Shotgun, shovel. Your neighbor's been giving you a hard time. You feel like they're draining your energy. Stupid. Dark goddess ritual. Does this one require cinnamon? No. I don't even know what it's for, though. Often misunderstood as evil, she is no-nonsense, tough, and strong. Yeah. Generally, if people say, yeah, they're misunderstood, they're not actually evil, it usually means they're evil. You're just being a contrarian. But anyway, so yeah, there's some other stuff in here. Forgive someone who has wronged you. Well, I can do that without a spell. I forgive you. Right there. Bam! I should write a book like this. Spells for Dummies. How to forgive people. Just tell them, it's okay. I forgive you. Pay it forward spell? Wait, what? So you cast random magic in this one. You write a note. It's dumb. How would you even know if that worked? You cast a spell and you got a big smile on your face. You're like, I paid it forward. No, you didn't. Well, anyways, that is our segment on magic. If you guys like that, I'll go through the book and see if there's some other ones in here. I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to keep going through it and making stuff. And getting noticed spell. Getting noticed by Heather Graham. Let me know if you like that segment. Attracting a lover. I mean, I don't know why I'm like, oh, maybe this one will work. I'll toss it over there. If you guys like that segment, let me know. And we will do it again. If you guys hated that segment, then that's fair too. But it's already recorded. I can't do anything about it. Dave H., let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world. A famous carpenter copter. We're leaving behind the spell book. Why don't you fly us all the way out to... I tell you right now, we don't have time to do the Red Letter Media story. So if you're a huge Red Letter Media fan, I would consider myself a pretty big Red Letter Media fan. We're going to have to wait till tomorrow for that one. But I want to throw in another story here that's shorter, but still pretty intriguing. So let's take a look here. Let's see what I got. Okay, you know what? I think this is a good compare and contrast. I think this is a really interesting compare and contrast. I originally wanted to cover this on a later episode. Let's try it tonight. It's a little bit longer, so hopefully the episode doesn't go too long. Dave H., I'm going to toss you the keys to the world-famous carpenter copter. Everyone climb on board. As we're leaving behind this witch's grove, why don't you fly us all the way out to a hospital? First off, I want to give a shout out to Eminent Clown. They're the one who sent this story over to me. It's absolutely fascinating story. And again, kind of an interesting compare and contrast to what we just talked about. We're in the year 2000. And that is when Leonard Leibovitch of the Rabin Medical Center in Israel decided to do a test. A test involving whether or not praying can help people recover from illnesses quicker. Pretty interesting. That is an interesting theory. Does it work? That is a question that religious people have. I think religious people accept that it works on faith, but you would like to know more of how it works. And if you're not religious, you go, well, I don't think it works, but let's explore the idea of it. Someone praying for you, because we often hear that when we're in times of trouble, someone will say, hey man, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers, I'll be praying for you. Does it help? Emotionally, it could. You know that people are worried about you, thinking about you. But can it have a physical effect? Can it have a magical effect, for lack of a better term? Law of assumption, changing the universe, using your thoughts to focus in on a moment and say, I want my friend to be healed. Doesn't work all the time, right? But does it work at all? It's a fascinating study. They did this big study back in 2000. It involved a double-blind randomized group of people. You had 3,393 people who were suffering from bloodstream infections. They had sepsis or some variation of that. And among these sick people, they were divided into two groups. They were divided via a coin flip. So none of the researchers knew who was in what group to start off with. They were randomly sorted in these two groups. And double-blind study, no one really knows what's going on until the numbers are revealed at the end. It's like a little game show for when scientists get bored. Then you have a group of prayers. You had people that were praying for patients to get better. And then you had a group of patients no one was praying for. So this is the way that it's set up. The people who were praying would know who they were praying for. I think that would be the only give in that, right? The people who were praying would know the names of who they were praying for. The scientists wouldn't know who was being prayed over and who wasn't. And they'd be monitoring the results of these over 3,000 people who have blood infections so bad they're hospitalized. It's not just some guy at home being like, oh, my blood hurts. That guy needs to go to the hospital. But it was people that they could test. How long were they in the hospital for? What were their symptoms and things like that? So, when all was said and done, there's a twist to this too. There's a crazy twist coming up. When all was said and done, it turns out that the patients that were prayed over, they were never physically near each other. They were just in their thoughts. The people who were praying were thinking about these people and praying for health, praying for a quick recovery. The patients who had prayers said over them had shorter fevers. Sepsis will kill you. It's pretty bad. Had shorter fevers and shorter hospital stays. So those were two things they could measure. The people who were in the prayer group, their mortality rate was 28.1%. Or out of that group, 475 people died out of 1,691 people. 28% of them. The mortality rate for the control group, who had no prayers said over them, was 30.2%. 514 people died out of a group of 1,702. So you did have a difference in the people who were being prayed over versus the people who weren't being prayed over. As far as fever, as far as length of fever, as far as length of hospital stay, they were able to leave the hospital earlier. And mortality rate. Not a huge difference, but if you're in that 2%, it's your life. So you go, oh, okay, Jason. I mean, that's kind of what you figured. If you're religious, you go, yeah, prayer works. I know that it's not a miracle necessarily. It's not like it helps all the time. It can help us emotionally and spiritually, but people still die after having prayers said over them. And again, even in the prayer group, 28% of those people died, even though people were praying for them. And if you're not religious, you go, well, it's just science. The difference is pretty negligible. I mean, 2%'s nothing to sneeze at, but, shorter hospital stays, shorter fevers. All the detailed notes are in the show notes, so you can actually look through the study itself to see the difference in length of fever, the difference in hospital stays. They weren't negligible. There were differences there. What makes this study bizarre, because basically based on those numbers, you would say prayer has some effect on the outcome. 2% change, again, is a difference of 30 people surviving, 25, 30 people surviving. They were randomly chosen, sorted into these groups. 30 people survived who were prayed over who didn't survive in the control group. just looking at the raw numbers. So that's a lot. But what makes this study even more bizarre is that the study and the experiment with the people, the prayers, all of that happened in July 2000. The people saying the prayers took place in the year 2000. The patients, the people in the hospital for the blood illnesses, were all in the hospital between the years 1990 and 1996. The prayers worked retroactively. Super weird, because if you want to talk about prayers work, and again, they didn't specify, as far as I could tell, what particular religion, who was praying, who was doing the praying, whether it was Jewish prayers or Christian prayers or Muslim prayers or Buddhist prayers. They may have had an assortment of them, or maybe I missed that detail. I don't remember. They didn't say it was Protestant prayers or something like that. It's just the idea of praying, of focusing your thoughts on another person for healing purposes. It'd be one thing if these guys were in the hospital in the year 2000 as well. But these were all retroactive prayers. Somehow the prayers went back. I mean, you go, Jason, no, it's just statistics. It's just that you randomize this group of people, and some people live and some people die. I get how that works, and I also get how prayer works, and I also understand how time works. And I do believe that time is so malleable that you can pray backwards. Now, the question is, now we get into all sorts of hypotheticals. The illness that was fixed back then, was there another timeline where it wasn't? And then the prayers corrected it? Was that person always going to be healed because they knew that the praying was going to work? Was it, again, it was just all of these coincidences? It was all coincidences, all of it. And none of this worked. I mean, it really depends on where your starting point is. If you go, well, that's an interesting thing, but I still don't believe in prayers, that's totally fine. And I know there are religious people who'd be like, I believe in praying, but this is a little too weird for me. What's interesting, I don't know if this is true, but back when I, dated Mormon girls a long time ago, someone told me that they believed that they can retroactively pray and baptize people. I'm pretty sure this is true. So they can baptize people into the Mormon faith after they're dead. So Albert Einstein's a Mormon, and Attila the Hun's a Mormon, and Julius Caesar's a Mormon. They can go and they can baptize and do these rites to take people who existed before Mormonism, or they were good people and Mormonism was around, but they never converted. Family members that passed on, so everyone can be in the afterlife together. So there is a theological standing for that in at least one of the major religions. Mormonism at this point is considered a major religion. Now, I've never heard any other faith say, yeah, no, prayers work backwards. But if you believe in praying and you look at this study, it would match up. Now, what's really interesting is this was a very, very controversial study. And I know I don't have a lot of time, but I have to address this part. Otherwise, it'd be intellectually dishonest. It was published in December 2001 in the British Medical Journal. There had been, obviously, studies done on whether or not prayer helps the healing process. There actually have been a lot of studies done on this with varying results. Sometimes they go, it can help, but it doesn't limit the hospital stay time. That was one, October 1999, there was a study done on the same subject, basically, and they go, well, it does seem to help the outcome of the patient, but, it's not super measurable as far as hospital stay length. That they're trying to use things. If the guy just goes, hey, I feel better today, you can't really measure that. He goes on to say, listen, we don't know why it works, but there does seem to be a significant difference. We have this double-blind study. We didn't know what was going on until the end. He goes, well, we don't know how it works. He said, however, to be fair, James Lind, who we're talking old-timey stuff now, back on the boat, the HMS Salisbury in 1753, when people had scurvy, bones are all getting out of joint, they're all dying of scurvy, he figured out that lemons and limes could help prevent scurvy. he figured that out, and that actually allowed the British to have a naval advantage over the rest of the world. They kept it a secret that lemons and limes can actually prevent scurvy. But they said when James figured that out, when James Lind figured that out, he didn't know why. He didn't know about ascorbic acid. He didn't really even know what nutrient was. He didn't understand the concept of a nutrient. All he knew was that lemons and limes worked. And he was able to prove that it worked. And it reshaped the world because they had that tactical advantage. That's why British sailors are called limeys. Super interesting, right? But again, it turns out, this is so fascinating to me. A lot of people, it's super controversial because Christians in particular, which I'm a Christian, but Christians in particular have taken the study and run with it to say, look, prayer is real. And there have been people in the scientific community who were upset at Leonard for publishing this, saying, look at what you've done. Look at what you've done. You got these people running around saying that prayer is real. And they're not in on the joke, the scientist would add. Because this is such a head scratcher for me. It turns out that the British Medical Journal, every December, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do it, their December issue was a joke issue. Now, what's weird is that, okay, you go, so it was made up. It was like a practical joke. No. The study is real. All the studies they publish in December are real. All the facts and figures are real. They actually do a real study. But what they do is they come up with a ridiculous topic to look at. So scientists go, well, it's a joke. They don't understand that the December issue of the British Medical Journal has funny articles in it. But then when I saw that, I go, oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. But then I started looking into it, and the study is real. Everything is real. So whether or not it's in an issue of Mad Magazine, if they actually did the study and the numbers show that that is right, the idea was a joke, but it turned out that there might be something behind it. And this has caused a big, I shouldn't say a big issue, but definitely at the time, people were really upset about this. Not Christians, because they were just posting it to Facebook, and they have been to this day. And you have scientists going, they don't get that was our joke issue. If we had published that on April 1st, then maybe they would have figured it out. But again, it's not a made-up study. It's a real study. So I don't understand why the scientists are getting bent out of shape. In 2003, the British Medical Journal, their December issue, you had people write a paper. You had Brian Olonsky and Larry Dawsey write a paper, Retroactive Prayer, a preposterous hypothesis. And they said basically, listen, even if it wasn't a study, they were just basically, because they had spent the last 3 years seeing this stuff posted all over the internet by their aunts and uncles, it's a legit study. You cannot like it, but they did the study and they go, listen, this is what these two authors said in the December issue. They go, it doesn't matter if the results are real. It really doesn't matter that this was a study that was done, because the idea is so preposterous that it can't be real. It cannot be real. This can't work. In this paper, what happened was they were addressing all of these criticisms over the retroactive prayer study. And the criticisms were basically this. The criticisms were, it doesn't matter if the numbers are real. Because it's so preposterous, it does not matter. This isn't real. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if the numbers work. It doesn't matter if the study was actually done. It is not a real phenomenon. It doesn't make any sense. Brian and Larry of this paper said, listen, I thought this was an interesting quote. They go, quote, rather than dismissing studies of prayer because they do not make sense or confirm our existing knowledge, we should consider them seriously exactly for this reason. In the history of science, findings that do not fit in often yield the most profound breakthroughs, unquote. To this day, the study still does get cited a lot, and the scientists are like, damn it, not this again. Because they go, you don't get it, it was a joke, but you can't explain it because it wasn't a joke issue. It was a funny topic, but the results speak for themselves. There's still talk about maybe the article should have a satire tag on it. It's kind of out of the bag at this point. But super fascinating. I love this story. Imminent Clown, thanks for sending it over. Because one, it does show, if you look at just the raw numbers, right, the power of prayer. But then it adds in that wrinkle of the power of prayer through time, which is fascinating, right? If it was just a study, does prayer work? That'd be interesting in and of itself. And they have done studies on that with varying results. But then you have a study, does prayer work through time? And now we're talking all sorts about like quantum theory and multiverse, something in the future affecting something in the past. I mean, pretty trippy stuff, right? But then you have the whole secondary part of the story where people are saying, no, this was just a joke. But the joke was it's not based on, it's real stuff. It's so funny for someone to go, no, I made that up. You made up the numbers and all the data and everything? No, the data and the numbers and everything are real. I just think it's funny that their defense is it was published in a joke issue and it's a funny topic, but everything was legit. It was a real legit experiment. It's so odd. That's such a bizarre argument. It's funny because thinking about this, we've really, in this episode, we've looked at three pretty dogmatic things. Witchcraft, organized religion, and then the orthodoxy of science as well. And all three of those can really kind of shut themselves out from everyone else, right? The witches I've known have been, I've known a very small handful of nice ones, but usually they're very high and mighty, and they think they're better than everyone else because they're a witch, and you're just a earthling or whatever. A muggle is probably the term they'd use. They were, honestly, growing up in the church, they remind me exactly like the people who were very high up in the church and thought they were better than everyone else. That's who they reminded me of when I meet witches who have that same attitude, like, I'm a witch, and don't you bitch. It's like, I had no opinion of you at all until you opened your mouth. But now, I think you're kind of like Jason. They just said one thing, and I'm like, I hate you for life. No, you know what I mean. Like, most of the witches I've met are very, very high and mighty. They think they're better than everyone else, and they think they have access to these powers. And the same thing when you meet these people who are very high up in the church, and they think they're better than everyone else. And they do have powers, political powers within the church itself. And then you have the orthodoxy of science, which I think most scientists go into it for the sake of curiosity and wanting to discover things. And sometimes they learn that there are certain questions you can't ask because your career will end. And then you have people who go into science just because they are mildly curious and they couldn't figure out anything else to do in college and they just want a paycheck. I don't think that's the majority of them, but you do get them. And those people are the ones who are just constantly doing whatever is popular. They'll go with whatever anyone else says. There are orthodoxies to all of these things, and it's fascinating to me. The episode's going way longer than I thought, but definitely I thought that both of these stories were... I at a certain point, I got to tell these together. I think they actually work. I think if I say that prayer works, I think it's because you're focusing your intent on something, going back to that law of attraction. I think a Jewish prayer would work just as well as a Muslim prayer, would just work as well as a Christian prayer, that would just work as well as a Buddhist prayer or whatever. Thoughts and prayers. I don't think it's the fact that they're shooting a beam up to God and it's coming back down to a human that makes it powerful. I think it's your faith in the prayer that makes it powerful. Your faith in your God that makes it powerful. You don't need any rituals. You don't need any voodoo dolls of that sick guy you don't even know in the hospital. It's that focus, that's intent, and that gratitude and that love you give into the universe that can help. Does it always help? No, unfortunately it doesn't. But to the 30 people in that prayer group, their lives continued. Would they have lived otherwise? Or did by someone praying in the future collapse the multiverse into one where he would end up walking out of that hospital with his family? He ended up surviving. Fascinating stuff. I love doing this show. Even though possibly invited Jin into my house, which I did not. If there's any Jin here, you gotta bounce, but fascinating stuff. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is at Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.